Hello everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Daily Gwei Refuel, where I recap the latest news in the Ethereum ecosystem. I'm your host, Anthony Sassano, and today's the 24th of February, 2022. Alright everyone, let's get into it. So, I think today, the last 24 hours or so, have been quite a sad time for the world, really, obviously, with Russia officially declaring war on Ukraine and beginning their invasion there. Now, obviously, I'm not a geopolitical expert, and I don't think most people are, so I'm not going to be opining on the conflict itself and the war itself. I just wanted to quickly touch on a tweet that Vitalik actually put out, because for those who don't know, Vitalik is part Russian. I mean, part Russian, part Canadian. His dad's from Russia. So, you know, he obviously has like a pretty big kind of vested interest in this, or I guess maybe vested interest is the wrong term, but obviously he's affected by this and things like that. Now, he put out two tweets around this. He put out one condemning, I guess, Russia, and saying, you can view the tweet here, and there's a translation where he says, "Glory to Ukraine," and then a second one where he says, "Reminder, Ethereum is neutral, but I am not." And that's basically to say to the people, hey, look, you know, I'm a human, I'm not going to be neutral on topics, I have biases, I have emotions, and I'm going to pick sides here. Whereas Ethereum, the platform, I mean, we've built it, or we're building it to be as neutral as possible, so that, you know, anyone can use Ethereum, like whether whether it's Putin using Ethereum, or whether it's kind of like a Biden using Ethereum, Trump using Ethereum, you know, whoever it is, whatever world leader you can think of, whatever good person, bad person, whoever it is, the point of neutrality is that it's neutral. Like, it doesn't matter who's using it, doesn't matter what's being done on the network, terrorist financing, money laundering, you know, all the worst things you can think of, it's going to be done. But the thing is that neutrality doesn't mean that just the bad things happen. It means the good things happen as well. It means that we get to build tools that help people escape bad things happening to them. For example, financial oppression is really a really big deal in lots of parts of the world. Ethereum, Bitcoin, a bunch of other networks out there may help with that. Like, I don't think we help with that at this point in time, in terms of kind of like it being to the stage where people can actually use this sort of stuff as part of their everyday lives or anything like that. But it is an option, right? But not only is it an option for those kinds of people, it's an option for people in the first world who want to, or kind of like in countries where they're not financially oppressed, in order to escape the system or opt out of the existing centralized systems. And that's, I guess, what most of us are pretty much excited about and interested in, because I assume most of you watching or listening aren't under oppressive regimes. You kind of like aren't being cut off from your banking services or anything like that. But the point is that we want to be able to use something that we consider to be a better system, a fairer system. And that is what DeFi is at least trying to be. That is what a lot of what Ethereum is building is trying to be. But again, this can only exist if the platform is neutral. Like, Ethereum as a network does not take sides. It does not say, hey, you know, I'm not going to process this transaction because I suspect that it is part of like a terrorist financing thing or something like that, right? The Ethereum network has no opinion. Every transaction looks the same to the Ethereum network. It looks the same to kind of like miners, and they're going to process that. Now, can censorship happen on the network? Can transactions be dropped? Of course they can. The miners could band together, and they could basically choose to censor a particular address, blacklist a particular address, and then not include those transactions. But obviously, given that mining is kind of like a distributed thing, it's a decentralized thing, and given that we're moving to proof of stake, which makes this even harder to do, it becomes like a very, very low chance. And that's why we call it censorship resistant instead of censorship proof, because it still can happen, but it's a very low chance there. But still, in that kind of regard, the Ethereum network is still not taking sides there. That's the miners, essentially, or I guess like the block producers taking sides here, or at least kind of like breaking that neutrality, but that doesn't really happen. Now, the final thing I want to kind of like say on this is that while Ethereum, the network, is neutral in its kind of like, you know, normal running state, it can still be disrupted by humans, because at the end of the day, humans run, as I mentioned, the miners, humans run the full nodes, humans run the infrastructure, humans are responsible for decisions that get made on the network, such as network upgrades. Yes, it requires overwhelming majority. Yes, things can get vetoed and not included if the majority doesn't want it. But the thing is that humans are still responsible. So, for example, I mean, we talked about the DAO hack recently. Humans decided to basically return the hacked funds to the individuals and take it away from the hacker, which led to a network split, of course. Now, we could still do that today if everyone decided to do it. If the vast majority of the participants within the ecosystem, you know, exchanges, individuals, full nodes, miners, all that sort of stuff, if they all decided, hey, we want to unfreeze the parity funds. Like there was a bug in a parity smart contract, their multi-sig wallet a while ago. A bunch of ETH got frozen. I think it's like 300,000 ETH or something like that, and it's still frozen to this day. There was an EIP to unfreeze it, but the community voted no against that because they said no, that would be a bailout. Cody's law sort of thing. We're going to leave it like that. Now, that doesn't mean that the community can't come together right now and unfreeze those funds. They could, right? They could. But the thing is that we're building these systems so that it's resistant to stuff like that. You build the culture around that to say that no, the only time we want to change the rules of the network is when we're actually upgrading the network, and it has to go through the EIP process, which is a whole thing. It takes forever to do anything. I mean, it took over 2.5 years for EIP 1559 to get in, and that was one of the most popular, or the most popular EIP ever to be proposed. So I think when you take that view, you can kind of see how it all fits together there. But that was basically all I wanted to say about that. Obviously this conflict, I have absolutely no idea what's going to happen here, no idea where it's going to go, no idea what's going to happen with the markets. Obviously the markets aren't liking this. The markets don't like uncertainty. I'm just going to keep delivering the Ethereum related news, guys, because me as an individual, I can't do anything. I mean, I'm in Australia. I'm as far removed from this conflict as one could be, essentially, right? But, I hope it all turns out for the best, even though I know it probably won't, because obviously in war there are no winners. It doesn't matter what side you're on. It sucks for everyone. It's just the way it is. But we'll have to see what happens there. But I think that's probably going to be the last thing I mention about it, to be honest. I'm sure you don't need to hear my opinion about it. You'll see it all on Twitter, Reddit. It's actually kind of surreal seeing a war be live streamed and live tweeted out. That's just pretty bizarre, but that's the world we're living in right now. But anyway, moving on from that onto a bunch of the project updates from the last 24 hours. So Obol Labs here, the team behind Obol Network, which is a multi-operator validator network for Ethereum proof of stake. And I've talked about Obol before. Basically, they want to make it so that you can safely stake and have redundant systems set up as well. They're doing a bunch of stuff to make sure that people don't accidentally double sign and things like that. You can have a active staking system, and that would mean that you could have two active instances of a validator going on, but only one of them would be kind of in the active set at a time, so you don't get double signed. So that's pretty exciting. But anyway, in relation to what they announced today, they launched what's called the Obol Proto Community, which is an on-ramp to organize, educate, and incentivize community members contributing to DVT and the Obol ecosystem. So you can check out the blog post, obviously, for a full breakdown of what's happening here. But this is really cool. I think, as I've said before, protocols live and die based on their community, and kind of having a community is really, really kind of hard to do and hard to build up, and a lasting community is hard to keep sticking around. But I guess right now Obol doesn't have a token, so they their community is going to be built on people who actually give a shit about the protocol, rather than 99% of those people just being there for the token, which I really, really love, obviously. And then while growing this community over time, they'll be able to kind of add more and more people to the ecosystem, add more and more people that can build things as well, build out the infrastructure, help to kind of build out what they're trying to deploy here, which is going live after the merge, by the way, because it doesn't actually work before the merge. So keep an eye out for that. I don't know if that's going live after the withdrawals are enabled. I believe it's kind of after the merge, but I don't think that's going to be the full kind of package of what's being delivered there, because it does rely on Ethereum's roadmap being delivered there. But yeah, really, really cool to see this. I'm looking forward to seeing how the Obol community grows and what they kind of accomplish with this. I think it's going to be great. I mean, as I said before, Rocket Pool is what I consider an Ethereum proof of stake community. Absolutely awesome community. ETHStaker, awesome community, right? Everyone that seems to be involved in the Ethereum proof of stake ecosystem are just awesome people who are really in it for the right reasons. And there's no reason to believe that the Obol community won't follow the same path. And I think there's going to be a lot of overlap there. I think there's going to be just this massive Venn diagram where you have proof of stake people in the middle, and then you have Obol, Rocket Pool, general kind of Ethereum proof of stake, all overlapping, and then Lido, whatever else, all overlapping there, and then we can just have a very, very robust and healthy staking ecosystem. And we like I've talked about before, I've talked about this plenty of times, where I've said that we need a robust and healthy staking ecosystem, or else proof of stake is kind of pointless. We don't want to get to a point where essentially we have what we have today in Ethereum, where most of the miners actually don't care about Ethereum. Really, I mean, they don't care about Ethereum's values and its ethos and stuff like that. And this has been shown time and time again. And I've talked about this a lot on the Refuel, especially around the drama with 1559 miners trying to veto it. But when we go to proof of stake, we're going to have people that both give a shit about Ethereum and everything Ethereum represents, but also care about about staking on their own, about decentralizing the stake. So those kind of I guess stakeholders overlap much more greatly, which that's one of the things that's less talked about, but one of the things that I'm most excited about in the kind of like staking world. But yeah, if you want to get involved, you can join the Obol Proto Community by following this link, which is in the blog post, which I'll link in the YouTube description below. All right, so a massive announcement out of DeversiFi today. They have teamed up with the Opera browser here and Starkware to power the first mobile browser wallet on Ethereum Layer 2. So you can transact instantly and gas-free with L2 directly from the Opera browser. So you can read this blog post for more information on this, of course. But this is great. I mean, I was talking about like mass adoption yesterday and how we could kind of like simplify these things for people and make it so that more people can get involved with our ecosystem. Well, obviously L2 is a big part of that, gas-free L2 especially, because at the end of the day, most people don't want to pay fees at all, which is totally fine, totally understandable, right? But you can scroll down. I think there was an image somewhere of what this looks like. I don't know if it was on Opera's page or not. I mean, you can see at the top here, there seems to be a bit of a teaser on the right hand side of this image in the video. So you can basically choose who you want to kind of like send funds to, enter the amount, and then send those funds to the recipient there, which is really, really cool. Obviously, with cheap fee or gas free cheap fees here, which is awesome. And DeversiFi, for those of you who don't know, is also a decentralized exchange, so that's going to be part of it as well. There's going to be fiat on ramps, I believe, and Opera, maybe one of the smaller browsers, but they still have hundreds of millions of users, I believe. I remember I used to use Opera back in the day, like a while ago. I think it was back when I was a teenager. Because it was actually better at the time than Chrome and Firefox, believe it or not. But I think these days browsers are a bit of a muchness. But there's still a lot of people who use Opera. I mean, obviously I'm using Chrome right now. It's kind of my daily driver. I'm just used to it. But awesome to see this. Awesome to see DeversiFi landing a big partnership like this, and obviously Starkware as well, because Starkware powers DeversiFi. They're using the StarkX ecosystem. So very, very cool to see this. You can go check out the blog post for more information about this partnership. All right, so Yearn announced today that they are now on Arbitrum. Awesome. This is the first L2 that Yearn is on. As I've said to you guys before, that once, I guess, like a lot of the supporting infrastructure and supporting apps are deployed to Arbitrum and Optimism and all these other L2s, these kind of aggregators will follow. So obviously Yearn's very popular as a yield aggregator. Now, you can access them on Arbitrum, which a lot of people have actually been waiting for. I remember in the Discord channel, this has been brought up multiple times. People are like, when Yearn, when are we going to be able to do, yield aggregation on layer 2s? Well, here it is. It's on Arbitrum, and it's great that it's Yearn because they're actually serious about this kind of stuff. And they go through why Arbitrum here. Arbitrum's Ethereum's largest L2 with $3 billion in TVL, 10 times lower gas costs right now, obviously lowering over time. Support for Arbitrum Ethereum deposits and withdrawals on both Binance and FTX. And it strengthens Yearn's first true love, which is Ethereum, because Yearn is also on the Phantom blockchain as well there. So to ensure a smooth rollout, Yearn will launch on Arbitrum with a single vault, Curves Tri Crypto, which represents a curve liquidity pool holding equal parts of 3 tokens, wrapped Bitcoin, wrapped ETH, and USDT. So to enter into the vault, you can just follow this guide in this thread here. So awesome to see this. At the end of the day, what I see playing out on layer 2 is exactly what I saw play out on layer 1 during DeFi summer. We get all these DeFi Legos kind of like deployed, and then we get these aggregators that sit on top of all these Legos and put them all together and create awesome products. And that's exactly what Yearn does. And, the funny thing is Yearn was, I think, the biggest thing in DeFi summer. There was SushiSwap and there was Yam, but I think the magic of Yearn and like the yield farming that came out of that, like everyone getting their hands on yield farming, trying to wrap their head around it, the Wi-Fi token going nuts, like that really, I'm getting nostalgic right now about that. That was really what earnestly kicked off DeFi summer. Like Compound obviously came first in June with their liquidity mining program and comp and stuff like that. That was, I would say that's kind of like what the beginning of it was, but I think Yearn is what really kickstarted the entirety of DeFi summer there, and that which continued into kind of like Yam and Sushi and, a million different food forks. And it was just a crazy time. Like I actually, now that I think about it, I'm getting nostalgic over how crazy it was. I'm not going to bore you with that, but essentially, it's great to see that they're still around. That's the point that I was getting to, is the fact that they didn't just leave. They didn't just kind of like, I guess, how do I say it? Like abandon the network, or abandon kind of like their project, even though obviously DeFi's been very quiet lately in terms of like the token prices and stuff like that. They kept building, and they keep building, and they keep doing things like deploying to L2s on Ethereum, which is obviously, we always want to see that. We all want to see that, right? And we all want to use these products. I mean, at the end of the day, there's probably other yield aggregators on the L2s at this stage, but it's all about which ones you trust. Like, I would trust Yearn over pretty much like all the other ones, just because it's been around for such a long time. I know that the builders behind it are very earnest and know what they're doing, and they take kind of like security seriously as well. So cool to see this. Just another thing for you guys to use on Arbitrum. And speaking of what to use on Arbitrum, Litocoen has another thread about some of the cool new apps on Arbitrum. So actually, Hedgic has actually launched on Arbitrum. I didn't know Hedgic was still around. I thought that kind of like that project had been abandoned, but apparently it is, and apparently they continue to build, which is really awesome to see. A bunch of others here, a bunch of the other options protocols. There's something called UkiTrade, which I think is a margin trading platform. I hadn't even heard of UkiTrade before until just now, so that's pretty cool. Hashflow, obviously, I've been talking about them quite a bit recently. Acropolis, wow, Acropolis. I haven't heard that name in a while. They've been around for a while now. I didn't know they were still around. So there it is. And then there was kind of like Strips Finance, which I mentioned before as well. But you can check out this thread from Litocoen for a bunch of links to that sort of stuff there. And speaking of Arbitrum, I also wanted to mention that Arbitrum reached their all-time high of daily transactions recently at 100,000. And this is during a bear market, guys. Like, this is what I mean when I said that look at what's growing and going up and to the right when the markets are quiet, because that's where the most of the value is being created. And Arbitrum hitting 100,000 daily transactions is actually pretty bullish. I mean, yes, Ethereum does like 1.2 million-ish per day, but Ethereum is kind of capped because of its gas limit. Arbitrum, they have a kind of like training wheels on and a cap on and stuff like that. But Arbitrum, in theory, can do thousands of transactions per second, right? So in theory, it can go up to tens of millions, if not hundreds of millions per day once we get to that kind of like demand level there. But they're just growing steadily during the bear market. Now, imagine what happens when the market heats up again and we get all this kind of like craziness coming around again, and Arbitrum is ready to onboard users. And obviously not just Arbitrum, there's the other L2s out there as well. Optimism is doing a lot of great stuff, along with the others. But imagine what happens when the market heats up again. It's going to go crazy, right? And this is the best period for kind of like these L2s to be in, because they get to stress test the infrastructure with with kind of like a lot of legit apps launching on there, and with not too much craziness, so they can actually focus on things. And they also get to kind of like ramp it up slowly, so when the craziness comes back, they're ready for it. So I'm very much looking forward to the next proper bull market, guys. We're going to have a proper L2 ecosystem for people to use, and it's no longer going to be, I hate Ethereum. There's so many high fees. Like, it sucks. It's so slow. I'm not going to pay $1 million for a swap. Obviously not $1 million, but instead of all that, people are just going to bridge into Arbitrum, just going to bridge into Optimism, going to bridge into all the other ones. Like, obviously, the Polygon POS chain has been out there for a while. People have been enjoying that. Not an L2, but still a solution for people. So I think that it's going to be a very different narrative once this happens. So I'm very much looking forward to that. And I'm just loving the amount of apps that are going live on all these networks, on all these L2s as we progress through, I guess, like the bear market. All right, so Perpetual Protocol have announced that they are sponsoring the first ever ETH faucet on Optimism. So you can get 0.002 ETH by bridging at least 3,000 USDC to a new wallet on Optimism. This is really cool, because what this means is that you'll be able to get ETH on Optimism without having to bridge in ETH, because you obviously still need ETH to pay the fees. So you'll be able to kind of bridge in at least 3,000 USDC to a new wallet using optifaucet.com here. Then you will be given the 0.002 ETH, which I actually don't know what it is in dollar terms. Let me quickly kind of like calculate that. So it's about $5, which is enough to do kind of like a couple of swaps. So what you could do, transfer that USDC in, right, to Optimism, then trade a bit of it for some more ETH using the free ETH that you've gotten, and then away you go, right? You can kind of like have full kind of like power to do what you want there. So that's very, very cool. And I guess like really cool for Perpetual Protocol to be sponsoring this. I'm not sure how long this is going to last. Maybe it doesn't last forever. And obviously the value is so low because it could be cybled, right? People could create like lots of different addresses and then just bridge in. But the thing is that bridging in to Optimism, I don't know what the cost is currently, but it actually would cost more to bridge in and to get the free kind of like OETH than it would be, like it wouldn't be profitable to do that, because obviously the gas fees on layer 1 to bridge in would be more than the ETH that you would get on Optimism. Yeah, but the point is that like normally if you wanted to bridge in stablecoins and ETH, you would have to do 2 transactions on layer 1, which obviously cost a lot in gas, or you'd have to bridge in ETH and then trade it for USDC on Optimism and stuff like that. So now you can just bridge in stablecoins and get your free OETH. So very, very cool to see this. Head to optifaucet.com if you want to get involved there. So Jasper here put together a thread talking about one of the most important votes in DeFi is going on right now as Convex Finance votes on adding a gauge for a wstETH-rETH pool. If this vote passes, a new era will begin where wstETH will no longer be king. The time for Rocket Pool is now. So to the start of the killer collateral, wstETH, and he kind of like breaks it all down here. I'm not going to read all this because it's going to take me forever to read all of it. But he kind of like breaks it all down here. But this is going to be a really cool kind of like pool that basically allows you to trade between stETH or wrapped stETH, which is Lito staked ETH, and rETH, which is Rocket Pool staked ETH. I mean, guys, like just taking into account that, and then taking into account these other tokens, which are kind of like YCRV, which was like Yearn stuff with kind of like convex stuff mixed in there in order to get like more rewards and more yield. You're going to be holding an ETH staking token, then you're going to be getting yield from the swaps, then you're going to be getting yield from the token payouts as well, of CRV and CVX, I believe, and in LDO, like Lito's token. And it's just kind of becomes like this massive yield burger that kind of beats out, a lot of things for ETH. Like you're getting yield on ETH, by the way, guys, not on stablecoins here. Now, in saying that, as I've said plenty of times, there's obviously more risk here. There's not stablecoin risk. There's smart contract risk. There's risk of one of these kind of like staked ETH tokens losing their peg for whatever reason, or not their peg, but like losing a lot of value for whatever reason, then the pool ending up holding the one that that you don't want to be holding and things like that. There are extra risks here, but I think the risks, maybe don't outweigh the benefits, right? So you can maybe just kind of like stake a little bit with this to get some outsized yield, and stake the rest with maybe just Rocket Pool vanilla staking, or staking on your own if you've got that, if you've got the ETH for it, or things like that. So just another solution here, but this is very cool to see. As Jasper says here, this is going to vote right now. I'm sure it's going to pass, right? This is going to be super popular for people to kind of like play around with and get involved with. So yeah, great little thread here from Jasper that you can read. It'll be linked in the YouTube description below. All right, so the EF Ecosystem Support Program has a new website at esp.ethereum.foundation with office hours and more grants. So this is cool because basically I've talked about the ESP a bunch of times on the Refuel and about all the stuff that they're doing. For those who don't know, refresher, they support a bunch of different kind of like projects in the ecosystem using funds from the Ethereum Foundation. So basically giving out grants and stuff like that. So you can see here that in 2019, they gave out $7.7 million worth of grants to 68 projects. In 2020, they gave out $12.9 million to 99 projects. And in 2021, they gave out $26.9 million to 136 projects. Very, very, very cool. So, and there's just an asterisk here, ESP grants and support are not inclusive of all EF allocations. And this website has a bunch of resources that you can read as well. I'm obviously not going to read it out on the video. You can kind of click for applicants here. So if you're interested in getting some support, you can apply. You'd learn more about everything that they're doing, learn more about what they support. There's a kind of like a scope blog post here, who we support, how we support them, all these sorts of stuff. So yeah, this is a cool little website. I'm glad they put together this, and there's a blog post you can read as well about this, because I mean, look, it's funny because I've mentioned how the Ethereum.org website didn't get updated for a very long time, and now that it has been updated, it is one of the best websites out there, guys. Like seriously, so awesome. So we need more of these things because I think people get confused about all the moving parts in Ethereum, and that's because we are decentralized, so it's kind of like hard to centralize information, so to speak. But more and more of these kind of like info sites are being put together and coming out, which I think is going to help a lot with that. So very, very cool to see this from the ESP. All right, so Nick Johnson from the ENS team here shared a post today that Spruce, which is behind, I guess, one of the teams behind the sign-in with Ethereum effort, has put forward a proposal for the ENS DAO to fund the first credibly neutral identity provider for OpenID Connect, allowing any site that supports OIDC or OpenID Connect to trivially add support for sign-in with Ethereum. So you can go check out this full blog post, or I guess like full post on the ENS governance forum here. I'm all for this. I think they're looking for a $200,000 grant, which makes sense here, but anything that makes it easier for, I guess, like websites, or I guess for like any website, like Web 2 or Web 3, to add support for sign-in with Ethereum is kind of like good in my book, because you guys know my view on this. I would much rather be able to sign in with Ethereum to a website than have to use something else. Like, I don't want to have to use Google or Facebook or Twitter or anything, because it's centralized platforms. I can't bring my data with me. I don't own my data, and it doesn't help me build up my on-chain kind of like profile, whereas sign in with Ethereum does. So I'm all for this. As I said, you can read this, you can go check it out, and see what they're kind of like after here. They're not after that much money, to be honest. I mean, 200 grand is really not much, and it's going to be a combination of it could be a combination of both USDC and ENS, and the ENS treasury is quite large right now because it has a lot of ENS tokens in it, and I doubt selling, even like $100,000 worth of ENS is really going to move the market there. So I'm all for this, but definitely go check out the discussion here. Add your own points to it if you want to, because this is something that's very exciting to me, especially around not just signing with Ethereum, but like identity layers and things with on-chain identity. I think there's a lot going on here, and there's going to be a lot more going on here as time goes on. All right, so speaking of the Ethereum.org website before, they put together a page about bridges in part. They did this with LeFi protocol. So you can go here. This page will be linked in the YouTube description. I've spoken about bridges so much, and I remember saying that L2Beat was going to put together a bunch of resources around this, which they will. But Ethereum.org has beaten them to the punch and put together a bunch of resources around bridges for you to kind of like read about as well. So this is really, really awesome. I mean, and they've got links to further reading on the bottom as well. As I've said plenty of times, bridges are becoming, or have become, that kind of like single point of failure for a lot of the stuff in the ecosystem right now. You want to be able to know what bridge you're using, what kind of like the trade-offs are, what the trust assumptions are, how it works under the hood, what the risks are, all that sort of stuff. And this is a good first step from the Ethereum.org team and the LeFi protocol team to kind of like put this together. Now, I'm still looking forward to L2Beat's resource as well, because I'm sure they're going to go even deeper than this, and even technically deeper than this, but this is still good. So definitely go check this out. I'll kind of like link it in the YouTube description. But on that note, I'm almost at time here, but there's one last thing I wanted to kind of like talk about, and that was with regards to, I guess, like the Discord channel. Now, the Discord channel, I've mentioned it before. We have such an awesome community in there, guys. Like, seriously, I know I say it at the end of every episode to join it as just like a generic thing, but seriously, if you're looking for a community that gives a shit about Ethereum, really deeply cares about Ethereum, is not all about the price, actually talks about the tech, and you can get your questions answered in there from basically a lot of smart people, join it. I'm in there. I typically respond to messages in the Discord channel if you tag me there faster than anywhere else. So if you want to get my attention, that's definitely where to do so as well. And we have channels for basically everything. I mean, if I bring up my Discord kind of like app here, we have channels for like obviously prices is being discussed. We have like ETH1, ETH2, Layer 2, DeFi stuff, gaming stuff going on. And I wake up every morning and I look into the channels. I'm like, holy shit! Like, there's so much going on. I can't even keep up with it anymore. It's so awesome. So I just wanted to kind of shout that out again for you guys to join that channel if you haven't yet. Hope to see you in there. But on that note, I'm going to end it there for today. So thank everyone for listening and watching. Be sure to subscribe to the channel if you haven't yet. Give the video a thumbs up. Subscribe to the newsletter. Join the Discord channel. And I'll catch you all tomorrow. Thanks, everyone.